Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Bonus Point Rugby Show. My name is TJ Olson, and great to have you with us for another episode of the pod. We have a very packed show today, so let's summarize what we've got in store for you. As always, we will start off with our lightning quick recap segment covering everything that went on in the rugby world at lightning quick speed. Then we have a very special guest with us this week, someone who has been in the media and content space of rugby, working with World Rugby, a variety of international unions, and also a few MLR teams here in America. So we can't wait to pick her brain about this space in rugby, what she's been up to, and what is really resonating with rugby fans here in America. Lastly, we'll round out the show with some rapid fire questions for her, as well as our tipping for week 15 of a very eventful Super Rugby Pacific game that we've got coming up this weekend. This is what is on the cards today, so let's rip in. This is the Bonus Point Rugby Show. Thank you for joining us today, everyone, for another episode of The Bonus Point, the podcast where we unpack the game, the culture, and the people who make rugby more than just a sport. It's been a very big week of rugby as usual, so let's dive straight into our lightning quick recap segment, starting off chatting about Super Rugby Pacific round 14. The Hurricanes and the Highlanders faced off, and it was ending up in a 24-20 win to the Hurricanes. It was a thrilling finish. Cam Roigard scored a last-minute try after 22 phases and secured a comeback victory for the Hurricanes. This match was very concerning for a couple of reasons for the Hurricanes. I think if you look at the match that they played, they had 15 22-meter entries into the Highlanders' defensive 22. The way they weren't able to come away with points from that, very concerning for their last couple of weeks. I think you also see that the defensive profile of the Highlanders, even though they're at the bottom of the table, they were quite literally the better defensive team on the day. So that's why it led to this really quick, really close scoreline. I think the tackles missed were the only thing that the Highlanders let down, but tackles made, the percentage, the amount of dominant tackles they made, they were a solid team. I think it really shows how close this competition is, about how close the scoreline is and where they lay on the table is them being in last place. So good on the Highlanders, but just tough loss to them. The Waratahs and the Crusaders game, Crusaders came away with a 48-33 victory. The Crusaders dominated pretty early with tries from Johnny McNichol and Braden Enor. Despite a late surge from the Waratahs, the Crusaders held on for that crucial win, keeping them in that upper echelon of the playoff picture. Fiji and Drua, they're back to their secret weapon, playing home in Fiji, 38-7. They showcased a lot of attacking prowess, and they had a very, very interesting force team that struggled to contain the Drua's dynamic play. I don't think the Heat would have factored in too much. The Western Force would probably be used to that being out in Perth, but Fiji, they're back to their old ways too late, though, in the season. Moana Pacifica and the Blues, this game was outstanding. Tony Johnson commentating did say that this was the best performance by an individual player by Adi Savia he's ever seen in Super Rugby, and he's seen a lot of matches, he's caught a lot of matches, but another player that is also a big standout in that game, Kyron Taimaifalau, he had a hat-trick that led Moana to that historic win over the Blues and marked a very significant milestone for that team, putting them back in that playoff picture. The last game, the Brumbies versus the Reds. The Brumbies' solid defense and strategic play secured a vital victory for them, propelling them to the top of the standings. They go into a bye week at the moment, and they had a score of 24-14. I'll be interested to see how the Brumbies go because they do have that bye week. Most teams who do have a victory like this, they would want to capitalize on that momentum and keep that steam going, but we will see come week 16. Let's chat a little bit also about the Pac-4 competition. New Zealand and Canada, they did have a very thrilling encounter out in, I believe it was out in Christchurch in the Orange Theory Stadium, 27 draw. The match saw multiple lead changes, both teams showcasing exceptional skill and determination. New Zealand's Sylvia Brunt scored a crucial try in the 82nd minute to level the scores. However, the conversion attempt was unsuccessful. Alan Bunting and his coaching staff, I think they're going to have a really tough film session ahead of them. I think the New Zealand team had a lot of questionable decisions on attack. I think they also had some very crucial and significant errors around the ruck area and defensively. So it'll be very interesting to see how they come out after this tied match in their final game of this competition. Last game, Australia and USA. Australia secured a 27-19 victory over the USA, marking their first win in the series. The Wallaroos displayed a balanced performance, capitalizing on scoring opportunities and maintaining defensive resilience. The USA team did showcase moments of brilliance, but they just couldn't overcome Australia's lead. That is it for our rapid recap of the games that went on this weekend. We are just going to cover one story today, and that is Ardie Savea being named the Player of the Year in Super Rugby Pacific. With 2 weeks left to go in the competition, and we haven't even hit playoffs yet. This man is so far ahead in the in the Player of the Year standings. It doesn't even matter what happens in the next couple of weeks. But his remarkable form is the reason why he has been named Player of the Year. I think you can also go to his leadership qualities, everything that he's been doing for Moana Pacifica and their club, and really gotten them to this point, really putting them in like a whole new stratosphere for this competition. But he really played a very crucial role just in this one game against the Blues, getting them that victory, even the last turnover. So I think if you look at his statistics this season, he's had, I believe, 5 tries, over 350 post-contact meters. He's had 110 tackles and 15 turnovers. So, man, I mean, congratulations to this man. Very well-deserved. I can't wait to see what he does in the back end of Super Rugby. I can't wait to see what he does in the playoffs if Moana are fortunate enough to get into that point, which I really hope they are. That would be the best storybook ending. Hopefully I don't see them beat my Chiefs this week, but they deserve nothing more to be in this playoff picture and show everyone what they can do. All right, that is our lightning quick recap segment. So let's dive into our first half segment, and that is all about content creation in the rugby space. If you're in the US, you say rugby, a segment of the population know what you're talking about, but the majority either think you're talking about a weird version of football or just a chaotic and barbaric sport of people smashing into each other. So our guest today is one of the people making sure that the US and the rest of the world starts to see the beauty of the game and understand it. So she's a digital content creator, a rugby translator, a master storyteller, and the list can go on and on. I can be here for days about all the other things that she does in her life in the rugby space. Through her videos, she breaks down the game, the rules, the culture, all with clarity, creativity, and a lot of fun. So she's helping fans not just understand rugby, but fall in love with it. Please welcome to the pod, Samantha Lovett. How you doing, Sam? Good to see you.
Hi, I'm doing great. Thank you. That was such a nice introduction. Thank you so much. I love that rugby translator. I like that one especially. That was great.
I mean,
Cool.
A lot of your content like really stands out. I think, especially for newer fans, I think rugby translator is definitely going to go on the CV.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean that's really what I aim for. Just making rugby more accessible, especially here in the US. I think we have, such a great opportunity to get new fans. I mean, we have so many people bought into so many other sports here, but so many big sports fans in general that if they just get hooked on rugby, they're just that little bit, and they just need like that entry into it, and we need to kind of make it like a little bit easier, not dumb it down, but make it more accessible. Like we have so much rugby information out there, but do we have enough for brand new fans? So that's kind of what I try to do. I try to fill that space and try to get people who are just casual fans, because honestly, when it comes to, rugby IQ and rugby knowledge, and that's kind of where I was in the beginning. I mean, I'm still there, and I still want to kind of be in that casual fan space. The part where I excel is the digital marketing and the content creation and the relationships I make with people and things like that. But when it comes to rugby analysis and stuff, that's not my strong point, and I don't need it to be. Like I want to be promoting the game at a level where we're pulling in new fans, and that's where I really want to spend my energy. So we need to kind of fill that space to get in the new fans. Like it's a big pillar to growing the game for sure. So that's kind of where I like to be.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think you have come across a lot of people's phones, not necessarily just all in rugby circles, like you said, but a lot of people are starting to see your work in new spaces and get drawn to the game. So how did you start making rugby content? Was it something kind of you just fell into, or is it something you have always thought that you wanted to get into?
It is definitely something I just fell into. It was completely random. It was during COVID, during lockdown. 2020, everyone was, kind of stuck at home. Before that was a wedding photographer for years. Then there was, of course, no weddings. We were stuck at home. I had all this creative energy. I wasn't getting to see my teammates. I think a lot of people didn't necessarily know I still play rugby. I was playing rugby, and then I was bored, and then I was like, oh, I'm just going to start making videos. And essentially it genuinely started with me making videos, making fun of my teammates. That's all it was. I was making videos, making fun of them being late to practice, making fun of them not being able to catch the ball. It was all just making fun of rugby stereotypes. And then it kind of caught on, and through the rugby community, just kind of missing each other in person. And we all got together online through different pages like the Quarantine Ruggers and all those types of pages that got together. It just, I was like, wow, okay, I kind of, I like making this content. It could turn into something different, and I could actually make it educational, not just comedy, not just for me and my friends. And then I started getting contacted by, World Rugby, Six Nations, to make some funny content for them as well. And that's really when like the digital content space took off. And then there was, Tokyo, and Ilona started making videos at the Olympics. And then other athletes started making more content, and really just like the digital space, like athletes, we just started to see a different side of sports, and, just athletes in general, and teams. We just got to see another side of them becoming more relatable, more accessible. And I think younger generations like Gen Z, they started to really just resonate with that and really react well to that. That's kind of the direction that a lot of digital marketing went. So I guess I just kind of harnessed that and turned it into a bit of a career. So I kind of, it never happened intentionally. I just started getting contacted by people, and I almost kind of just went along with it in a way. And I was like, okay, I guess this is my career now, which is funny because that's kind of what's happened to me in my whole life. I've ended up just kind of going with the flow. I am quite a spontaneous person, but I have really enjoyed this space that I've ended up in. And now, I'm beginning to be more strategic about it, and more, so
You literally picked up the ball and ran with it. Like it's something that
yeah,
just kind of fell in your lap, and you're like, yeah, I'm off to the races now.
pretty much. Yeah.
Well, there you go. Well, I know previously you were just talking about America having a bunch of sports, how crazy they are about sports, and it can
Mm-hmm.
be overwhelming for new fans. I think scrums,
Mm-hmm.
offside laws, rucks, even
Mm-hmm.
lifelong fans, they get confused sometimes. I think a great example this past weekend was in Super Rugby, where a foot was placed in touch. They play on was the call. There was countless sets of phases and multiple turnovers, and a try was scored following that. But then multiple referees, including the TMO, got in kind of a conversation trying to understand like a law that they quote, like the attacking passage of play, which negated the turnover and everything that went into that. Even regular fans sit there and go, I'm going to scratch my head and I have no idea what's going on. So
Yeah.
I think rugby has a bit of a problem retaining new fans, but I think content like yours is a way to draw them back in and make it more fun. So what's your process for deciding how to break something down to a new rugby fan and stay engaged? I know you said keeping it concise and simple-ish, but still
Yeah.
getting the overall
Yeah.
message across.
Yeah. Well, I do find that sevens is a really good starting point, actually. It's a good gateway, not just for the rules, because it is just, simply put, there's less people on the field. It's much easier to look at a scrum with three people on each side and kind of understand what's going on and explain to people, okay, well, this is happening because of a knock on, and now these three people are contesting over the ball, and then you can add on to that, okay, but then in a thins game there's all of these other brutes that we add in, and go on from there. And then so I think sevens is a great gateway to understanding the rules in a sense. But when it comes to just explaining those rules, I do it in the same way as when I get like roped into coaching my team, is when I have new players that come along and I explain things to them. And this happens, I'm sure, at every single club. It's when there's, your coach isn't there and the coach has decided that someone else is going to coach, and then the person's trying to tell everybody what's going on, and then every single person tries to chime in with something. Oh, but this, and then this, and don't forget this, and don't forget this. And you're like, hang on, guys, this is a new person. We don't want to fill their head. Everything you're saying is correct, But do we want to give them 10 things at once and then they're not going to remember any of them? Or do we want to give them 3 key things that they can go away with, remember, and then they're going to watch the next game or play their next game and focus on those things? And wow, so for me, when I'm teaching people rugby, I would focus on the safety things because that's going to be most important for their next game. They're not going to have to learn what to do a switch or something, right? And it's their first game at the weekend. I'm like, just stay low in a tackle and don't tackle somebody with your head, right? I'm going to whereas people will forget to teach people how to safely tackle. They'll be like, oh, these are our moves. And I'm like, oh my God. So I can't, oh my God, the amount of times I've been frustrated. So I kind of approach it in the same way with fans. So, okay, so, take these couple of things and watch them in the next game you watch, and you'll find that more interesting. And then the next time, so that's kind of, I just break it down really simply rather than there's so much and I think there is space in, in digital marketing, digital rugby space for analysts of all levels, for all different types of fans, right? There's the people who like Squidge Rugby, for instance, like his stuff is really cool. And there's space for everybody to really dig, because I'll watch his stuff and I'm like, I didn't know 98% of the things he said in that. That's so cool. Like if I want to have my mind blown and be like, I don't know anything about rugby, I'll just go watch his stuff and I'll be like, wow. But I'll just these simple little things, and it can just really help somebody understand it, and they can go and be like, oh wow, okay, I remembered that. I know why that scrum happened. And little things one thing that I think is really makes enjoying the game easier is understanding ref signals. For me, that really, really helped know what is happening, right? Like all the primary signal, the secondary signal, because at half of the time I would be, 2 plays behind, being like, why is this happening? Like, I'm so confused. Like, what happened? Like, because you couldn't hear, if you're not hearing it. So those little things that just help you enjoy the game more rather than going through a huge analysis of the game or a play. So, we need space for all of those little explanations.
Yeah.
So
100%. Yeah, I think that's why some players, and especially the newer ones, when they're watching club rugby here in America, a referee will call something, they won't signal anything, and then they'll go, I'm trying to understand what's going on. And I was like, yeah, don't worry, you won't be able to, because there's no arm signal here. Like you wouldn't be able to, even if you tried.
Yeah, that's usually my biggest feedback to our captain at halftime or something. I'll say, can you please tell the ref to be way more, obvious with their signals? And I'll tell our players, you have to watch the signals, because what happened? What happened? You look at the ref, the ref will tell you what's happening. So.
It's good. They can predict the future before it even happens. So there you go. Okay. Well, a lot of content rightly has gone viral in your space. And I know a lot of people, like you mentioned before, Alona Ma, there's a few other content creators in the rugby space that are starting to really get some traction. I thought it was really cool during the Olympics. You see people like Jason Kelsey from the Philadelphia Eagles linking up with the rugby players in the Olympic Village and kind of doing that stuff. So it's really starting to pick up steam. But do you think rugby is now really at a tipping point in the US, or are we still a little bit of a ways off?
I think there's definitely this moment where it's crossing over into mainstream media, and Ilona's been a big part of that. The minute rugby players are being invited onto Dancing with the Stars and things like that, you've hit mainstream, which is really cool. And she's got brand deals with Coppertone and Maybelline, and that's huge. And public aren't going to forget about that. And it's going to be hopefully what's the next team that's going to get noticed, or the next player, and it's just supporting players to get there and supporting teams to get there. Because the thing is Ilona has done such a fantastic job getting herself there, and it has truly been herself that got her there. It's been her talent, it's been her creativity, it's been her grinding, making videos and doing all this behind the scenes, while so many women in rugby and women in sports and people championing women in sports have been, sorry, that was a championing?
No, championing. It's a tough one. It's a tough one. I don't think I've gotten that word right ever.
Oh my God. So yeah, we'll just say another one so you can edit that out. And people supporting women in sports who've always been saying this is a possibility, but nobody's been putting the money behind it. There are other players out there, other teams out there, other creators out there, hint, that are capable of like creating that type of content, but they just need the help and the investment, because look what Ilona is doing now with all of this investment and support from all of these brand deals, and it's fantastic, and she's going to go to even further heights. And you're seeing all these different rugby organizations now like attaching themselves to her and using her image and like to death. Like her picture is being used everywhere, and I'm like, you guys, like, she was doing such a fantastic job. And if you'd, recognized and listened to everybody that was saying that women's rugby is a fantastic product, women's rugby players are fantastic products. If you put the money behind it, you will reap the rewards. And they're now that like we've, women's rugby, and Ilona has invested in herself and done the work herself. They've gotten lucky that she's done that for them. Like they've not done that, she has. And now, it's like, okay, we've proved our point. Can you now believe us and invest in us a bit more? Like, and I'm not talking just, rugby brands, it's rugby organizations, but other brands, like just partnerships, and just the people that are partnering with her now and her teams. And anyway, that's a rant I could go on.
I agree with you. I think another good example is like they're currently in New Zealand at the moment, the US team. And I think one thing that I noticed, and just in like social media or just in a few media outlets, if the US came to play the Black Ferns, it wasn't really a big deal in previous years. But I've seen Crowd Goes Wild, Sky Sport, like all these people not only like reaching out to Ilona through like the appropriate channels to get her on different shows. The Crowd Goes Wild went on a segment on their opening show and was like, please come on our show, like we would love, you can come host if you want, and like making it like a fun thing. But I don't think I would ever see 2 years ago an American player that would be invited on a show or something like that. So it's grown astronomical, and I'm so happy for it, because it's now starting to put like a really big footprint and showcase the sport all levels. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Well, what are some projects or companies that you're currently working with? I know you're always doing different things all the time. You're running around like crazy, and also with the family as well. So what's something you're working on at the moment?
So, well, with the Rugby World Cup coming up, I'm kind of working with a bunch of different creators who are going to be there. So a bunch of different women creators that are going to be there working freelance, because I kind of started this is kind of how spontaneous I am. So bear with me here. This is all still kind of a work in progress, but I'm very excited about it. So this week I was just thinking to myself, like, there's so many rugby freelancers, and it is so rare that we're all in one place together. But we're all in one place together, and we're all just usually still working separately. And I was like, wouldn't it be so cool if we were all in one space, like in a house, like, we're doing all of our own separate partnerships and things at the matches and things, but then all coming together and working on different collaborations throughout the week and editing together and having this kind of like creative co-op where we collaborate without too much pressure from like outside brands and stuff, but we like imagine what magic would happen if like all of us were together during those like all like that downtime between matches. So I kind of was thinking that, and then I was reaching out to like Alice Soper, and is that how I pronounce her name? Actually, do you know what's so funny? I have spoken to her. I have spoken to her from New Zealand. I've spoken to her so many times. We send voice notes back and forth. You should see our messages. We just talk all the time, and we're just like talking back and forth and if we've never met in real life.
Yeah.
Me and Alice, and we talk, but she's like totally on board with me as well. And we've been talking to, and I don't want to throw out too many names because we're not like we don't have like 100%.
It's still a work in progress.
It's still a work in progress, but we have like Olympic gold medalists on board to stay in this house. We have coaches, refs, players, ex-players, and it's going to be like directors, videographers. Basically, what we're kind of aiming for is this like creative global clubhouse. And it's going to be a hive of creativity. And we're looking for sponsors and partners. And what we're going to do is we're going to host events. We're going to host like interviews, Q&As, different like creative sessions, classes, all like for, all of these women are going to be coming together. All of these fans are going to be coming together to England to celebrate women's rugby, women's sports. And it's a once in a 4-year opportunity to get us all in the same place. I mean, all these people that we talk constantly online, and we're so rarely together. So that's what I'm working on right now. And that's kind of just through my own brand, Sam Love Rugby. And it's kind of my first big project I've taken on completely through my own brand, like big, like something as big as this. We are still looking for sponsors for it, but I'm kind of half thinking, do I just go in and call it the Sam Love Rugby House? I don't know.
It's got a good ring to it. I don't know. It sounds
I
good.
know. Just Sam's house, Sam's clubhouse. Who knows? Maybe I'll just go full in. But yeah, so we're just, if they say just if they won't make it, build it. I can't remember what the saying is, but I butchered that one.
What is it? Is like you'll build it and they will come, or something
Yeah,
like
or
that. I don't
if they
know.
will,
Yeah.
yeah, someone could help us with that one. Um, build it. I know there's build it and they will come, but that's not that. It's the other one. It's like if someone won't build it yourself, or do. Yeah. Anyway, I should have
Yeah.
written that down. That could have been something really cool. That could have been a really cool soundbite, but not today. Not today.
That's what the beauty of editing. I love that. We can always
Exactly.
recut it and we'll send it out later.
Yeah, I'll just like I'll find it and I'll send you a voice note, and then you can like put it over my
There we go.
my
That's the only reason I use AI. It'll be great. Yeah,
there we go. There you go. So I'm working on that for the Rugby World Cup. So if anyone watching this who's a creator, so we're really leading into the global aspect of it. So like myself from the US, Alice from New Zealand, we are looking for creators from all over the world who are traveling on their own independently to England. And especially we want to like loop in creators from like developing rugby nations, like rugby nations that don't necessarily get a lot of airtime. And we want to pull in, like, a big focus of this is going to be like rugby cultures, like from all around the world. And like, we want to make it quite like diverse and inclusive, of course, and just like making sure that we're representing all of the different rugby nations in as many ways as we can. Because let's face it, a lot of the content is going to be very England focused. It's going to be a very, and as creators, we're going to try to, focus on a lot of the other countries and just celebrate those as well. So that's a big part of it. Otherwise, projects, I'm always kind of working. I work with the LA7s team all year round, promoting that next event. So once we kind of figure out what's happening, who knows what's happening with that? That's a whole other conversation. Who knows if that's gonna, when that's going to be announced? Because we don't know when the event will be, or if there will be an event, until a few months before it anyway. So we don't know either. So yeah.
That is always the fun thing about it, is trying to figure out when the event is happening. But I think that's a good segue. So we'll take a quick break, and our second half segment is going to be great because we are going to be chatting about the Ireland Sevens program, and we're also going to be chatting about the new format for the HSBC Sevens. So yeah, no, this is great. Okay, we'll take a quick break and we'll be right back. Okay, welcome back. Today's second half segment is going to be code jumping a bit because we're going to be talking a little bit about sevens and 15s. But one topic that I want to start off talking about is the IRFU, the Ireland Rugby Football Union, cutting their men's sevens program. If you still haven't heard the news, the Irish Rugby Football Union confirmed the axing of the men's sevens program as part of a broader strategic effort to ensure long-term financial sustainability, with the women's program being unaffected and will remain a key development pathway for the women's 15 game. If you want more information on this, we did an episode partly last week and had a variety of different little pieces that we spoke about, but we're going to chat all about it again with Sam right now, and we'll go into a little bit. So Sam, the first thing I want to ask you, people like yourself, Harry McNulty, who's been voicing a lot and sharing their thoughts. This is a team that's qualified for the Olympics twice, has helped put Irish rugby on the map in a very new way. What was your initial reaction when you first saw this news come out?
My initial reaction, unfortunately, wasn't surprised. I wasn't surprised. I was very, very disappointed, but unfortunately, due to so many changes to the 7 series over the structure this year, so many changes to the branding and just the series in general over the last few years, to the locations, it wasn't a surprise. And, with a lot of rumors going around cuts and different things like that, and the lack of support that the Irish team had this year, and from being second in the series last year and then finishing 11th this year. Fortunately, the lack of the support that they got. It didn't surprise me that the IRFU made this decision. I kind of feel like, it was a decision they were planning to make. It was less of, less of a decision and more just like a foregone decision, honestly. Very upset by like their kind of lack of transparency, their reasoning, and their kind of cowardice in terms of just posting it on their sevens page where they have very few followers compared to their larger page, and just like saying it's a cost-cutting decision. And at the time, because of all of the information being put out by them and press releases and things, when you Googled it, how much does the IRFU spend on their sevens program, the number that was coming up was this like 4.3 million, because of all of the press releases and things from the Olympic year budget. And it wasn't until I think it was the Irish Times had come out with an article on May 18th, I believe, that they had posted the figure, which was 1.35 million, which was a non-Olympic year budget, that it was actually appearing on Google, the actual number. So there's just a lot of misinformation out there, and that they were kind of deliberately hiding behind. And yeah, just really disappointing to see, and kind of throwing the sevens team under the bus and using them as an excuse to kind of, let's just, cut that program, when there's a lot of and the sevens team, it's easy to just say, oh well, it doesn't make any money, but there's a lot of unquantifiable marketing benefits and growth to the rugby program, benefits and growth to just rugby in general, and Ireland's like 15s team. I mean, I know that the Irish guys, they've talked so much about this, and they know way more about this than me, of course, about different players that have gone on to play fins and throughout the world, who've like started off in sevens, and that the sevens program has really helped them. I mean, there's so many things. It's just really disappointing.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think the one thing that really painted a picture was your really helpful diagram. I think like Harry McNulty went into a very detailed insight into the costs and Olympic year comparatively to a non-Olympic year and things like that. But I think you made an excellent point on your social media saying some people are visual learners, and I know some people that I was talking to, they still didn't really understand it when Harry was talking about it, and they saw your diagram and they're like, that's it. Like that's the cost that it costs to run the program. I was like, yeah, it's very disappointing to see. I totally agree with you. Do you really think this is about money, or do you think it's a perception and prioritization of their 15s program? Like, do you think that's probably the idea?
Yeah, I mean, I think just a lot of people higher up in rugby. I mean, those are just levels of rugby. I'm never up there. I never talk to these people. Probably couldn't even tell you their names. Those are levels of rugby. Corporate rugby, I don't reach or talk to. Like I just don't think they see the value in sevens. They don't talk to the little people on the ground that see how excited people get about sevens, and what value there is in it, and how much what it does for the grassroots game. And I really just think that they don't see the value in it and how it feeds in to the greater game of like the bigger picture, in terms of like it's a gateway to becoming a rugby fan in all of the different rugby pillars. Because as Harry McNulty has mentioned in a lot of his different videos this week and different podcasts he's been on, is all of the different, you've got all different rugby communities all over the world. It's much easier for a group of kids to get together and play a sevens game. It's a lot easier for a sevens team to go and visit a school. It's it's easier for Harry and his teammates when they're traveling around the world. I mean, they got 13 players versus like a traveling team of 28 or 35 or however many travel when it's the 15s team traveling around, and they're playing less games, and they're traveling a lot less. There's, like I said, so many unquantifiable ways in which sevens can market the game and does things for the 15s game. And it's also just back to talking about making rugby more accessible. It is a more accessible and more entertaining game to a lot of people, but it's not entertaining to those guys who are making the decisions, and they're not asking people, and they're not including people who are actually on the ground enjoying the game and seeing people enjoy the game. And a point I made when I shared one of Harry's videos is like, when decisions like this are made and they're not including anybody who is part of a program. They're not including coaches, they're not including players, they're not including captains, they're not including ex-players, they're not including any staff that are connected to the program at all. Like, it's not a decision. They're just like, they're not making, like, it's not a decision. They've just already made like a conclusion. They've made it already. They're not weighing up a decision. They've already made their foregone. It's like done. Yeah.
It's not really a survey of all things kind of taking into
No,
factor. It's not a census. It's
no.
kind of just like, okay, this is the one thing that this is the point that I made last week when talking about this is kind of their leg to stand on, in a sense where they can go, okay, we're going to blame it on this because of cost cutting measures. When you take everything into consideration, Evans is often the entry point for non-traditional players, like you said, guys from smaller clubs, crossover athletes, players that need to build their skill set, and also, like you said, from a content and viewership standpoint, it's a much easier game to understand. So if you're trying to get more engagement, like obviously over in England and Ireland, rugby is more prevalent, but you still have to keep the fans that are growing up engaged. You still have to continue to build the grassroots level. So I think when you look at a content and viewership perspective alone, you'd think that this is going to cost Ireland severely from a variety of fans. How important do you think Irish Seven fans as a tool to draw in newer, younger fans is their viewership base? Do you think it's mostly just 15s, or do you think Ireland Sevens draws in a pretty big viewership base?
I mean, in terms of the numbers, like I don't know. I just know that, like, when it comes, we also have to consider like the Olympics as well, because it's so hard because if there's no sevens program throughout the non-Olympic years, how well are Ireland going to do at the Olympics then? And how well is that program going to do? And it's just, it is such a hard program to track, and hard program to track viewership, because when Ireland Sevens plays, it's alongside all of the other nations, right? So, I mean, I don't know how you even track who the fans are, but I will tell you that all these events, Ireland fans are great. There's always a group of Irish fans, and they're always hilarious. They're always great. They're wonderful fans. They're always a group at every single event. And it's sevens is, and I think what people always fail, the back to making that visual for people to understand. One thing that people just didn't understand, and what I really wanted to get across, is people think that Ireland pay for the team to fly around the world. World Rugby pays all of the teams to fly around to these stops and for their accommodation. So LA, Vancouver, Hong Kong, Singapore, their unions don't pay for any of that. That is all World Rugby. So like, I had people in the comments was like, oh, but someone was like, oh, I was doing, like quick math. That's got to be 100K at least for Ireland for each stop. And I'm like, they don't pay any of that. Like, that's all World Rugby. World Rugby pays all of that. And, it's more of it's a global product, and Ireland are only paying like 400K like into that. I say only, but for an organization like IRFU, it's not a lot compared to their full budget. I mean, I heard somewhere that's like one salary for one of their 15s player. Yeah.
And that's what I mean, is if that's going to be the cost of what it costs on a non-Olympic year. And I think from my argument standpoint, from a pathway perspective alone, just cop that. Find other sponsors, find other ways to fund that money, because once you take away that opportunity to get that pathway program, it's ridiculous. Some of our biggest stars now in 15s are coming out of the sevens program.
Yeah. And that's the one that really got me, was when Harry went into that longer explanation video, was the fact that they didn't include the sponsors in the conversation.
Yeah,
they didn't
terrible.
even give the sponsors, or they like that. That just made it very clear that they just don't care about the sevens program. They didn't even give the sponsors an opportunity to be like, okay, well, each of the sponsors will throw in an extra K.
Yeah.
Or
done deal.
Why would you not even give them the opportunity to pay more? They're I mean, it's at that point, it's like you're just showing bias against a program. And I mean, yeah.
Yeah, from a PR standpoint, and you can speak on this better than I can, but like, I think that would be a way better
Mhm.
message to send out and be like, we've gone to different avenues to try and find support for the sevens
Mhm.
program, and it has been inconclusive, or we haven't been able to come to a decision. That is
Yeah.
why we are cutting the sevens program,
Yeah.
rather than going, okay, cool. Yeah, we're gonna
Yeah.
cut it because we're not even gonna try.
Yeah. And you know, I felt it's not funny, but you know, I felt so bad because do you know who probably got the most shit that day was the poor whoever runs the social media page for that whoever runs their social media page and had to post that they were told to post this and
Yeah.
they had to make and it got posted with this like IRFU and there's like a little clover in the little word and I'm like reading it I'm like oh my god and they had to post this that essentially cutting an entire program and I
Mm-hmm.
was like, oh my God, this poor individual is posting this. And I bet they're getting their phone is probably, I hope they have a work phone and they could just put it aside for the evening and like, cause that's what people, they don't think about this. They're throwing it down the line. They're just like, well, let's get someone to do this and make them post it. And they didn't even get to turn like, yeah, I mean, if they turned off comments, it would have been even worse. But they don't think about these things. The commenters don't think about these things. That it's just
Yeah.
some social media person, and I don't know if they have interns or if it's like how many people are logged on to there, or if it's an agency or who they have running it. But it's not the guys who made the decision. They probably don't even know how to log on.
No,
They
definitely
probably
not. And
don't have any access. They
that poor
definitely
phone would have
didn't.
vibrated off the desk with all the comments and things, the notifications that would have come in. Oh my
Yeah.
God. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like anytime when we post stuff on the LA page and everyone's like, put it back to Vegas. I'm like, I have nothing to do with that decision, guys.
Be like, yeah, I'll just go talk to them and we'll get this sorted out for you tomorrow. Yeah, no
Yeah,
worries.
let me just go book a stadium in Vegas with all my millions of dollars.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. The amount of people that I will say the amount of people that have asked me, like, why isn't it in Vegas anymore? I was like,
Yeah,
yeah, I don't have
yeah.
the answer for you. But that
I
that is
have
that
an
is
answer. If we want to
okay.
put that on okay, I have the answer. And it is not anything to do with the people who organize it, us. It is because it is a team welfare issue. So think about Vegas and think about all of the hotels
This
in
is what I have
Vegas.
heard in the past. Yeah.
So so the logistics and of having like hundreds of 18 2-year olds in these massive hotels in Vegas that are full of smoke, full of gambling, full of all sorts of stuff. And we need to feed them. We need to bus them to training fields. We need to bus them to we need to bus them to the stadium. The players, the team managers, the team liaisons, we got like reports all the time about there being too much smoke. The teams, the unions do not want to send their teams to Vegas. It is not us. The teams do not want to go to Vegas. So maybe people could start complaining to the teams and be like, send your players back to the smoke-filled hotels, please.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to do that. And there's just the logistics are too hard to feed.
Yeah.
Like you're also asking these high level athletes to be around an environment which is not a high level athlete environment. It might be the perfect environment for all these degenerate fans like ourselves, TJ. Like I know.
Yes. We
We've been there.
thrived. We thrived in Vegas. We did many enjoyable things in Vegas. It was great.
We thrive in those environments. High level athletes, not so much. And you have to also consider that not all of the teams are from the same cultures. We have lots of different and those environments are not where a lot of people want to be. So there's a lot to consider there. And when you go, if you want to stay off of the strip and outside of Vegas, there's not a lot of options. It's just a logistical nightmare. And we have like, there are so many people to like feed and take like the gyms and the like there's so much that goes into it other than just the weekend. Like it's a full like week and a half beforehand and it is like the we have it's such an interesting like I think that the high level of like the requirements of the teams it's not that I wouldn't say they're high maintenance in a bad way. It's like it's how
Definitely
it should
not.
be. It's how it absolutely should be. These players require like a certain amount of the gym time, their rest, like their recovery, their activation. They need a certain amount of space. I mean, like in hotels, there's been times in the team hotels, like we'll be walking along and there's just like all this furniture out in the hallways. And I'm like, why is all the furniture out in the hallways? And it's because there wasn't enough room for them to stretch in their rooms. Like they needed more room, and they were like, this couch is too much, and there's
Yeah.
couches on their ends. And their like liaisons are ending up with a room full of couches because like because they're very, and the physios like room is full. And I ended up in LA. I was like in my room was like beside this. I was on the same floor as the Spanish team this time, and I actually left. I stayed in a different hotel the last night because I knew I wasn't going to get any sleep because they're so loud.
Gosh.
So, but anyway, that's a whole other, I could write a book about that, but that's so funny. They're all a lot of fun. They're all like good. Yeah, they're all a great bunch. They're all a lot of fun, but it is like rugby camp. It is. But yeah, so for the Vegas crowd, that's a whole other, yeah. But yeah, I'm
I will
getting
say
those messages.
to round out the Vegas conversation is like I had always heard this from players when I'd spoken to them who have gone on the
Yeah,
stops, and they had always expressed their concerns. But also, like, I think from just a Vegas standpoint, you go into a hotel, imagine this is your first time in Vegas. I get lost in some of those hotels that I've been like three or
yeah,
four times. Like if I go to the MGM Grand, I'm like, am I supposed to go this way? And then I'm just like stuck in a random lighted building for half an hour just trying to find access to my room.
yeah.
And being
It's
intoxicated during that time, yeah, good luck trying to
mm-hmm.
find your room if you don't know where you're going. But
Yeah,
okay, let's
yeah.
turn our attention to the entire Sevens tournament, because the news out recently, Division 1 of the HSBC Sevens tournament will now feature 8 teams per gender in a 6-tournament series, as World Rugby has been pushing for more commercial appeal. So do you think this new format delivers on this promise?
I have mixed feelings on this format. Yeah,
I think we all do.
and I am a freelancer, so I can say what I want about it. Really, I'm just really disappointed. I think this is going to do a big disservice. I feel so bad for the teams that fought all last year to get into the series, like to get into the 7 series. Like I feel that, which would have ended up being Kenya and both the Kenyan teams. It's terrible. Sorry, my mind is like from LA, like just absolute mush. Sorry, I'm like I'm like 8 teams. What is sevens? I don't know.
You're just like 1, 2, 3, 4.
3? I can't even count. But I am, yeah, I mean, it's just such a bummer. I mean, and I know it isn't on like one person. It's just a series of decisions that has really come to this point. But I think we're now at this point, and we have to move forward. Once we find out, I guess the locations of things, I will be able to have a better opinion on it. But we've got eight teams. I don't know, TJ, you tell me what it is.
Well, so I think from my perspective, I think, yeah, is it 8 teams in the both genders, and then it's also like that second division coming down.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think from this new format, what I've heard from people in World Rugby and people talking about the benefits of this is that from a player's perspective, it's making it more elite and marketable. Like I have heard that countless amount of times, but I also believe that it could potentially be leaving smaller rugby nations behind.
Yeah,
I think if you're looking at the competition from a Division 2, it's technically elevating the caliber, and it has an upside because you're getting some teams that are marketable teams. They're also pretty well talented teams. You get to play them on a regular basis. But I also see the format going like, there's too much pressure for one game, more risk and fewer chances. So I personally don't really see it. And it's kind of, in my opinion, it's also taking away the beauty of what sevens is, which is like the big party, the fun. It's making it into something that it kind of really isn't.
Yeah. My big issue here, and I think it's proven in my whole confusion and brain fog with all of it, is like, this is, me and the team are often, and I probably shouldn't throw myself and the team under the bus here, but like we'll be sitting thinking, if this is confusing us, what is it doing for fans? Like, I'm confused, and I work in sevens. Like I probably shouldn't say this, but I'm going to say it. I am the part of the social media team for LA Sevens, and I'm confused about it. Like, if it keeps changing this much and we're confused, how are fans feeling? Like, it can't change this much. It's like, I'm getting sick of it changing. It's confusing. If it's going to, the consistency with leagues like this is so important to maintain your fan base. That's where I'm getting frustrated, because I spent so much time explaining, like a big part of my content is explainer videos. I explained what was going to happen in these playoffs and how they were going to get promoted. And then that didn't happen. And that, well, that was frustrating on a personal level. And then I was like, I just confused hundreds of people, thousands of people. And I'm like, okay, well, that's not happening anymore. And I can't even make a new video because, what, I still don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
So, so now I'm like, and I still, and because now there's no locations and it's all quite confusing. And then it's like, okay, so if this doesn't work out well, is it going to change again next year? Mm-hmm. Or is this, because you have to, if this is going to stay this way, it has to stay this way for years to really solidify something like this and to make it a product. So I'm so worried. And then Ireland getting cut. I don't want to be too pessimistic, but I am.
Well, because I definitely agree with you. If I was running it, and like obviously I'm not the person sitting here going like, pick me, I'll figure everything out and I have all the answers. But I think this is also going to really affect Olympic prep. You try and think about all the things that are going to go into that. How can a program, how can players, how can coaching staff, they can sit there and go, okay, this is our 4-year plan and this is how we're going to build to it. If you are really focused on growing the game and making sure that everything, like you said, is solidified, we're not just throwing something at the wall and hoping it sticks. Make changes in that time, but make sure that it stays for that 4-year period so people can at least know the road ahead. They're not just going into a dark room and just trying to hope for the best.
Exactly. It must be just a nightmare for them, and figuring out, like, something I kept thinking of when the outcome of these of the pitch 2 games and the playoff games at LA changed. I was like, that's going to be so frustrating for coaches, because the whole year, the way that players get picked and rosters get picked is they'll often save certain players for certain tournaments, and they'll rest players, and then because it is grueling and it's really hard on players' bodies, and they'll play some players and keep some players to rest for another tournament, and players that they rested that maybe they would have needed, and it all changes. Like, they're very, very, there's so many tactics involved in that. I mean, you've been a coach, and there's so many parts to that, like you said, and so many plans go into it, and there's so much about it. And then the whole structure changes and it just all blows up in their face. And also to the point where, like, they're playing less teams now. There's less chances to analyze the game of another team that they're going to play at the Olympics, and less chance to play higher level teams for those players on different tiers. And they're not going to be consistently getting a chance to play against Australia or New Zealand women, for instance, in the same way that they would have last year. Or I think it's
we could make a whole nother episode on just this one piece. It'd be
yeah, I know. Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't have the solution to it, but I just, I think this is a problem that definitely should have been foreseen a lot. Like, this is something that should have been predicted a long time ago, like, by people who are in positions that should have seen this coming. Yeah.
Okay, well, before we jump into our bonus point segment, I do want to touch on the Pac-4 series, because you did mention you are going to the World Cup. You are really excited about going into that and creating a lot of content out there. I do want to talk about a couple of teams at the moment. You've seen the Black Ferns, they've come out. They have some really young, raw talent. You have the Wallaroos, they've come out, and you've got people from the Sevens era coming in there. You got Charlotte Caslick starting at 12 this weekend for the Wallaroos. You've got a lot of exciting players coming into the fold in gear up to this World Cup. So has there been any players or any teams that you've been seeing that you really are excited about?
Yeah, I'm really excited for Canada. Actually, I'm just really excited for, I think, especially given, they've had a lot of tough, they've just had a tough time with back home with their union and support and stuff. I think that seeing how strongly they've come out despite all that, it's really exciting to see them come out so strong. I mean, and then also just like the US, the kind of surprise at how strongly they played against Canada. And that was a big surprise. I mean, I know that Canada ended up, they got ahead in the end, but it was a real surprise that score at halftime was a surprise. And yeah, it's just, I love when, just it's so competitive. I mean, I hate when it's not as fun when you go in and you're like, oh, okay, well, the Black Ferns are just going to win everything. Like, it's not as fun when it's like that. So the more competitive women's rugby gets and the stronger each team gets, it's way more fun when we go in and it's not just like England and New Zealand winning everything. It'll be more fun if we go in and it's a real, like, it gets, more competitive. So that's what I really hope we go into, because that would just be the most fun tournament. Yeah, it would be.
100%.
Yeah, I'm definitely. I think because I'm also follow sevens more, is I'm really excited to see all the crossover athletes play and just what they can bring to sevens, and especially like Ilona and Charlotte like playing in the centers for sure. Like I love that, and seeing what they can bring to their team. Yeah, I love that. Yeah,
It's
I'm
going to
very
be great.
excited.
Yeah, no, I think the two games, one game that I watched live was the Japan USA game. I think I've been saying it to countless people, is seeing Japan, how quick and just like how gritty they were throughout that game, really keeping America on their toes. It was awesome to see. But that Black Ferns versus Canada game, wow, it was unbelievable. Like lots of
Yeah.
scrappy play and lots of errors and mistakes, but Canada with just, oh my God, they were
Mm-hmm.
so determined and they made some really good decisions, and that seeing them so strong heading into a World Cup, I'm really excited for them.
Yeah, and it was amazing, because I was like, right there, Olivia Epps was like in LA, had her. I think there was a couple of other girls that also traveled, immediately got on a plane, but they had their bronze medal in LA, got on a plane, and immediately traveled to New Zealand. And I was just like, oh my God, just like going straight from sevens to a 15s game, and that's just, I mean,
Yeah, it's
the
bonkers.
effort and the bonk, yeah, absolutely bonkers. I'm like, I could, that's just mind blown. How athletic do you have to be to okay, overachiever much. Okay, major point. No,
Yeah.
Olivia, she's just unreal. She's amazing. Yeah, they all are. The Canadian girls are just incredible. And I think and I will, a little shout out to them. I feel like they definitely should have been mentioned more in the end of season awards. There was no
Mhm.
Canadian women on the dream team, which I think was a
Yeah, that was very
up.
surprising to
Mm,
me too. That was a
Yeah.
big mess up. Like you've got to come to
Hmm.
a table with me and show me stats about how you're not picking at least one player as,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
insane.
Yeah. I was
Gosh.
very
Okay.
because
Well,
I was.
last question before we
Mhm.
dive into our bonus point
Yes.
segment. Women's World Cup. Is it England and whoever else can get to the final, or is it what are you saying in regards to the final? Who do you think it's going to be?
I'm gonna say I'm gonna say Canada.
Okay. I like it. I think if you look
I
at
think just.
just their track record at the moment, they've got a
Hmm.
they've got a tough road ahead of them, but
Hmm.
they've got a very convincing opportunity to get there.
Yeah, I'm gonna say Canada. Yeah, I'm just gonna say I would love to see Canada make it to the final with, and whoever else is gonna be there. We'll see that. Yeah. I mean, I would obviously say I'd love to see Scotland in the final, but
Hmm.
but like that would be. I'd love if Scotland could make the quarterfinals. That would be really cool. Quarterfinals, yeah, I would love to, because I think that's where I'm gonna be there for the quarterfinals forward. So if I could see them in the quarterfinals, I would be very excited about that.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think we're both in
Yeah.
the same mindset. If I could pick New Zealand, and even if they're coming like 12th in a tournament, I'll sit there and be like, "Come on, New Zealand, let's go. You're a
Yeah.
passionate Scot,
Yeah.
so you'll sit there and go,
Yeah.
"Come on, any way they can get there, we'll hope it
Yeah.
can."
No, for sure. Yeah. But I'm feeling a lot of love for Canada this year. So, and I guess also just because I kind of want to live there right now. So
Yeah, yeah.
will they have me, please?
Seriously, give me a visa as well. I'll take it any day of the
I know.
week. Oh my gosh. Well, today's bonus point segment, I'm gonna fire off
Okay.
some rapid fire questions. I can't wait to see what
Ready.
your answers are gonna be.
God. Okay.
I think you're gonna be doing fine. You're gonna be doing great. So
Okay.
3, 2, 1. Best rugby moment you've ever seen.
The Spiff's try at the Olympics.
Great. Love that. Most misunderstood part of the game.
People think it's more dangerous than it is.
Ooh, great one. Love that. Okay. Player you'd love to collaborate with that you haven't already.
Oh, Sheree.
Okay. Yep.
Sheree, yeah.
Kaka.
Yeah.
Sheree
Yeah.
Kaka. Oh,
hmm
man. You two in a room together. I would love that. That would be
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Okay. Dream rugby destination to travel to.
New Zealand. I've never been.
You've never been to New Zealand?
Never.
Oh my God.
Never.
Okay. All right. We'll have to fix that very quickly. Okay. How would you explain rugby to an American?
It's like American football's older, tougher cousin.
That's great. Okay, perfect. Yeah, that's awesome. All right. Well, I put you on the spot here today, but thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. We've obviously known each other for many years. I do want to say again that I am so happy you found this space. Your work is doing more for rugby than I think some people realize. It's opening the door for a lot of new rugby fans to come in and enjoy the sport as much as we do. So before I let you go, do you want to share with people where you can find your content if they haven't already?
Yeah, I am on Instagram at Sam Love Rugby. Also on TikTok, but most of my content is on Instagram right now, so you can find me there. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
No, of course. It's always good to have you. We'd love you back anytime. Stick with us. We're going to be doing our tipping for week 15 of Super Rugby Pacific. We'll be right back. Okay, well, big thank you to Sam Lovett for coming on our show this week. I think she's doing some outstanding things for this game, so please check her out on social media. She's definitely worth all the information you'll get in spades, plus a lot of laughs, so that is great. We'll round off everything with our tipping. This week, we've got a couple of really big games and very important games coming here. Crusaders versus Highlanders. Crusaders have just been in such good form. I think I've got to back the Crusaders this week. I think the Highlanders are definitely going to be very disappointed with their narrow loss last week against the Hurricanes, but Crusaders just too damn good. Reds and Hurricanes. This one is a toss-up for me. I think both teams have been a bit inconsistent. This week, I'm probably going to back the Reds. I think unless the Hurricanes come out firing, I think the Reds are going to have a great performance this week. They've got an outstanding lineup coming in. I'm going to back the Reds this week. Force versus Waratahs. I'm probably going to eat my words here, but I'm going to back the Waratahs in this game. I think you saw Dan McKellar this week and a couple of very key players in their organization talking about wearing the jersey and wearing it with pride and making sure that they come out and they're not just here to wear a tracksuit and be a player on the bench. They're going to come out and do their job. I'm thinking the Waratahs are going to come out firing this week and get the job done against the Force. Last one and most important game, the Chiefs and Moana Pacifica. I am backing my Chiefs with my heart and with my head. I think they have had a run in Super Rugby this year, and it's just been unprecedented. I think they're going to come out from that bye week and they're going to be ready. They've named a very solid team against Moana. But again, if Moana wins this game and get a win over the Chiefs, I personally don't see this as a terrible, terrible outcome. Moana will knock us off. Moana will get another win in the standings, moving them up in the playoff picture. We may move down a little bit and we may sacrifice a home playoff game potentially if we don't win our final game against the Highlanders. But I want the Chiefs to win, but if they don't, it's going to be very, very interesting. That is our show for this week. Thank you so much for tuning in. We got plenty of exciting games this weekend. Super Rugby Pacific, Pac 4, you name it. There's games going on all over the place. So tune into some rugby this weekend and we will see you next week. Have a good one.